All right, this is sort of the last attempt I can make. There's something very, very wrong with YouTube streaming right now, and I don't know what it is, and I have no idea how to fix it. And this is sort of the last ditch effort to just try to stream from my phone so we can do something. And I genuinely have no idea what is up with the computer-based system I was using. People say now that it's working. I seem to be back. All right. Well, listen, we will deal with this for now. I genuinely don't know what else to do. But this is the system I've got, and I think this is what we're gonna have to go with. Let's see if I can still independently confirm that this is working. I have no idea how long this will stay, and it's not it's not the ideal system, that's for sure. But we're here. So I want to talk about the Sally Yates hearing, okay? Yes, this is a live stream, and people who sign up for membership, Patreon during the thing, I'll do thank yous and all that stuff, but I do want to talk about the Sally Yates hearing and a lot of other stuff that's going on, okay? So after much delay, we finally heard from Sally Yates today. Sally Yates was Attorney General for a time under President Obama. She lasted a few days as acting Attorney General, that is. Acting Attorney General under Donald Trump. Trump fired her. Okay, that's not really the issue. The issue is we've been waiting for Sally Yates to testify for a while now. And she finally did today on the Trump-Russia scandal. And it actually may still be going on, but I disconnected in order to come over here and do the live stream. So I believe that there was major news, significant revelations today from Sally Yates' testimony. And I want to go through some of it because it's very easy. If you're there for, you're watching this thing for hours, it can start to appear as though nothing's really happening, right? And a lot happened. Number one, we learned from Sally Yates that the reason she went and had meetings about the Trump-Russia situation at the White House was because publicly, she was hearing the Trump administration say things that she knew to be untrue. She didn't say whether the Trump administration was saying these things because they were lying or because they didn't know that the things they were saying were untrue. But needless to say, they were saying things that were untrue. So she went and had meetings related to Michael Flynn. And what she was aware of was the fact that Russia knew about what was in Michael Flynn's past that could be compromising for him. And it appeared as though, at least at a certain point, Russia knew more than President Trump knew about what Michael Flynn's past held. Now, this could be because Trump was lying about knowing. This could be because Michael Flynn was lying to Pence and Trump. That seems more likely at this point. But long story short, there was a moment at which Sally Yates knew that Russia held information about Michael Flynn and proof of that information about Michael Flynn, which would have allowed them to blackmail Michael Flynn. This is a major revelation. Another major revelation from Sally Yates' hearing today before the Senate committee was that criminal prosecution of Michael Flynn was discussed during the second of this series of meetings that she had at the White House. Now, that doesn't mean that she went to the White House and said, I believe Michael Flynn should be prosecuted. That's not what she said. But what she did say was that the topic of possible criminal prosecution of Michael Flynn did come up when she went to the White House that second time. I believe it was 2 days in a row or in very close proximity. And that, again, Michael Flynn was actively compromised with regard to the Russians. That is another major aspect of what we learned today from Michael Flynn. Now, from Sally Yates about Michael Flynn. What will happen tomorrow? Are we going to see significant coverage of this from corporate media? Probably to some degree. Are we going to see significant coverage of this from independent progressive media? I certainly hope so. Because I absolutely share the concerns of some that there are those on the supposed independent left who seem to think that this is just no issue, period, that there's nothing to see here. And how, after the mounting lies, and again, Sally Yates' testimony, that this was such an issue that criminal prosecution of Michael Flynn as a possibility was discussed between Sally Yates and representatives of the Trump administration. I don't know how anybody who is approaching this in a fair-minded perspective at this time could not believe that this is a serious issue. Now, let me see if I can adjust my camera to get a better angle here. Just because I do want clarity this evening, as I like to say. Okay, I think that's a little bit better. So we've got, let me address a super chat about this. Zachary Richard sent a $2 super chat saying, thoughts on a Pat-only Patreon or subscriber podcast. Listen, Zachary, I appreciate it. It's great that you love Producer Pat. We've got bigger fish to fry right now than a Producer Pat Patreon. We have one Patreon. It's patreon.com/David Pakman Show. That's the place to pledge, period. We will deal with situations related to Producer Pat at some future point in time, okay? Also, James Clapper. So the hearing today involved former Acting Attorney General Sally Yates as well as former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper. James Clapper had no shortage of blockbusters himself. He was asked how early were Russians being monitored for possible attempts to influence our election in 2016. And we know about the investigation into Trump-Russia collusion that started in July of 2016. James Clapper said today, and again, if you watch hours of this stuff, it can all just become sort of like background noise. James Clapper said today that dating back to 2015, the FBI was looking at, specifically as it related to voter rolls, Russian attempts to influence the 2016 election. So there was a lot here, and it's really, people are busy. I produce a show. That's my full-time thing, and I still was so busy that I couldn't watch the entire thing. I watched a couple hours of it. There was a lot there, and it's important not to fall for a one-line summary of whether, you go on Drudge, and in fact, I just looked at it. Let me see if I can pull it up again. The Drudge Report headline about this was something like, Clapper and Yates grilled over unmasking. Such a bogus headline. That was a tiny fraction of what went on. By the way, those who attempted to, quote, grill Yates and Clapper about unmasking sort of made fools of themselves without naming names right now. We'll get into that tomorrow. And this is why you can't trust headlines about multi-hour hearings. You've got to try to watch some of it or read a summary of it or whatever, because there is just so much going on here, and it is stunning what we learned today from Sally Yates, and we're going to learn more about it as we continue digesting what went on there. People asking, how are there multiple streams going? What's going on with the stream? If you're just joining us, I've been streaming with on my laptop using my Blue Yeti microphone and I don't know if you'll be able to see this, my high definition camera. And for whatever reason today, there was a problem. YouTube told me the stream was working fine. About 100 people said they could see and hear me. But otherwise, there was some kind of major issue with the stream. So I switched over to my phone as a sort of last-ditch effort, and we were able to get that connected. And for that, I am very, very grateful. I want to get into, in a second here, the connections between the revelations that President Obama personally briefed Donald Trump or warned Donald Trump against hiring Michael Flynn. I want to deal with that in a second, and how that relates to the timing of the Sally Yates hearing. But I also want to send out a few thank yous, because we did have some really, really good people sign up for membership today, and I want to say thank you to them. Let me see if I can continue to make, this was a very, very last minute using my phone type of solution here, and I want to try to get the best possible angle on what we're doing here, and it's not working that well. Big thank you to Millie Rainey and to Dave Marchand, who have just signed up at davidpakman.com/membership. Also, we have new patrons coming in at patreon.com/davidpakmanshow. I will do live thank yous and shout outs to everybody who makes a contribution to the David Pakman Show. You can do this either at patreon.com/davidpakmanshow, or we still have, I know it's easy to forget that we have this because I don't talk about it very often, this thing called membership. We have a number of new members who have signed up at davidpakman.com/membership. There's a coupon code available. That coupon code is IVoted17. It gives you 40% off. And I don't care if you use the coupon code or you don't. It's there for anybody who wants it. You don't have to prove financial need. We just want as many people financially bought into what we are doing as possible. That's how we're sort of building community and coalition. And Lori Holcomb has just signed up at davidpakman.com/membership. Jared Monteith has also recently signed up. And Gina Hicks has also signed up at davidpakman.com/membership. So all very, very good things, and big thank yous to everybody who has been contributing, particularly in the wake of the YouTube advertiser boycott. Okay, President Obama. We have now learned that President Obama personally warned then President-elect Trump against hiring Michael Flynn. Initially, it was unclear the nature of the warning. We have since learned, and it's been reported by CNN, that President Obama mentioned Russia in the warning that he gave to then President-elect Trump. And this actually brings up some pretty interesting questions when it comes to impeachment, and there are many people who are already talking about impeachment. I believe that it is a little bit premature at this time, but there is a very interesting argument that is being made now, which is, okay, let's take a step back for a second. President Obama personally warned Donald Trump against hiring Michael Flynn because of his Russia connections. We have also now learned that Michael Flynn failed to disclose a whole bunch of stuff, including meetings with Russians, that he was an agent for Turkey, et cetera, et cetera. And I've started seeing a number of articles pointing out that you may have a case against Trump because he was told about the conflicts of interest of Michael Flynn and chose to ignore them. Now, I don't know legally whether something like that would stand up, but it doesn't matter as long as you have a Republican House of Representatives and Senate. They are not going to move to file articles of impeachment against Donald Trump unless his approval rating gets into the low 20s and it starts to become sort of a liability, as the case may be, for them in their reelections. I just don't think that you're going to see that happen. But it's an interesting case that is being made, okay? So tomorrow on the show, I'm going to dig into significantly both the revelations that President Obama personally warned Donald Trump against hiring Michael Flynn. The timing with regard to the Sally Yates hearing is very, very interesting, and there's just going to be a lot to talk about tomorrow. Just no shortage of big stories. And the Sally Yates hearing, I know people in the chat are saying, there's nothing new. We didn't learn anything new. Well, no, I mean, you do actually learn a lot when there's speculation for weeks and weeks or even months, and then you get an elected official, or not an elected official, in this case, a key Justice Department official in the former acting Attorney General, Sally Yates. Even if she's confirming things that were suspected, there's a big difference between media reports of something and confirmation from someone who was working on the inside at the time, right? So I think that if you're misreading, I think you are misreading the Yates hearing if you're seeing it as just a restatement of things that we already knew or assumed, okay? I think that it is a mistake to approach it from that perspective. Big thank you to Kevin Clements. Kevin Clements has just signed up for membership at davidpakman.com/membership. Membership continues to be the number one funding source for the program, particularly in the wake of the advertiser boycott that is happening on YouTube. Let me very quickly say a few words about that. I don't want to take up a lot of the stream talking about the YouTube advertiser boycott, but on March 31st, YouTube ad boycott due to just a few ads that showed up on videos that were deliberately racist and hateful. YouTube flipped a switch, and overnight it crushed our YouTube revenue, down 99%. And for most of April, we essentially made nothing on YouTube. And we talked about membership as a funding replacement for that. We launched a Patreon page at patreon.com/David Pakman Show, where we now have over 1,500 patrons. But it's still an uphill battle. And there's good news and bad news as far as the YouTube advertiser boycott, okay? The good news is that ads have returned to some degree. So we used to get 6 ads for every 10 views on our YouTube channel. We are now getting about 4 ads for every 10 videos on our YouTube channel. So that's about 2/3 of where we were before. The problem is not in the number of ads anymore, it's in the quality of the ads. And because so many advertisers have bailed on advertising on news and politics on YouTube, that each ad that we have on our channel is only paying about half what it used to. Okay, so we've got roughly two-thirds of the ads, and they each pay half as much. So we're basically at 1/3 the YouTube revenue of where we used to be. So needless to say, is it better than losing 99% of the revenue? Of course it is. Is 1/3 of the revenue going to cut it in terms of being able to continue everything we're doing uninterrupted? No. Okay, so there's basically 2 things we've been doing. One is we've been pushing membership. You can sign up at davidpakman.com/membership. If you don't know what membership does, number one, you're supporting the work that we do. Okay, so that's just right off the bat. But we do a daily show just for our members. Every single day we do extra stories. They're not on YouTube publicly, and it is a separate program called The Bonus Show just for our paid subscribers. That's one benefit of signing up at davidpakman.com/membership. The other thing is we do a daily 1-hour broadcast show. And the way that we upload that show to YouTube is in 5 to 7 minute clips. And we spread those out starting at 4:30 p.m. Eastern. We spread them out for the entire week. As a member, roughly at 4 or 4:30 p.m. Eastern time every weekday, you get a 1-hour video minus the commercial. So it ends up being about 52 minutes with the entire show. You can watch the entire show at between 4 and 4:30 p.m. Eastern. That's one of the most popular membership benefits, okay? And we've got a coupon code that'll save you 40%. I don't care whether you have real financial need to save 40% or not. Whatever level you sign up at, you're voting with your dollars, okay? So davidpakman.com/membership. The coupon code is IVoted17. Use it. And we also have Terry Lemon, who has just signed up at davidpakman.com/membership. Okay, a number of other things that I want to get to here. There are a lot of people continuing to comment in the chat that we didn't learn anything new from the Sally Yates hearings, okay? So there's actually 2 separate ways that I want to approach that. Number one, I said this before, but we're having a lot of turnover in the live stream. Number one, just because Sally Yates merely confirmed suspicions reported by media outlets doesn't mean that it's not news. The fact that someone who was directly briefing Trump administration officials about what was going on with Michael Flynn, the fact that she has shown up and said, yes, this was true, that was true, we were talking about criminal prosecution, we warned about this and that, that is major in and of itself, okay? And number two, this is only what is allowed to be said publicly. I would argue that close to half, I would say, of the questions that Sally Yates was asked, specifically with regard to what is known about Michael Flynn and Trump-Russia collusion, roughly half of what she was asked directly, she said she would not be able to answer in an open setting like the one that she was in. So my expectation is that over time, particularly after there are non-public hearings held, we are going to learn a lot more about exactly what it is that Sally Yates knows. And I think it's a mistake to write this off as just boring political speak. I watched it very closely, and that's not the impression that I got. Okay. Zion Trainism has sent a $5 super chat saying, sign up, guys. David is essential for the movement. Use the 40% off code and get busy. Well, thank you very much for the endorsement. Yeah, we have a number of people signing up right now. We have Jackie Smith, who has just signed up. We also have Kevin Sinfield, who has just signed up at davidpakman.com/membership using the coupon code IVoted17. By all means, use the coupon code. We produce the show every day. We've got a studio, we have staff, we have not insignificant bandwidth and file storage costs to transfer our program in high definition every day to 200 TV stations as well as radio stations. And membership is the number one way that that's all funded. So yes, thank you very much, Zion Train, for the super chat. And continue to use super chat by all means. Some questions in the chat about what all of the Sally Yates testimony stuff means for some of the other players. This includes Paul Manafort, who, completely bought and paid for by Russian officials. Jared Kushner, who failed to disclose dozens of meetings with Russian officials. And by the way, the fact that he shares financial interests with George Soros. I covered this last week, and I don't necessarily want to get fully back into it now. How ironic is it that Republicans for, certainly years, if not at this point longer than that, have been trying to tie George Soros to just about anything they could on the left. And it turns out that the person that actually has shared financial business interests with George Soros is none other than the president, a Republican president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, with actual business deals with George Soros. But okay, we'll put that aside. What does this mean for Jared Kushner? What does this mean for Carter Page? We don't know yet. We have just heard today from Sally Yates about the seriousness of this investigation into Trump-Russia collusion. We've heard about the seriousness of Michael Flynn's involvement in everything that we now know went on. I don't yet know. We're sort of getting ahead of ourselves here. I don't yet know what it is that is going to be implied or learned about Jared Kushner or Carter Page or Paul Manafort or any of those others. What I can tell you is that what we heard today publicly from Sally Yates is just, a tiny, tiny fraction of what Sally Yates knows, and hopefully of what she will be able to tell senators from this panel behind closed doors in a classified setting. And whether we'll directly find out about that, I don't know, but certainly it's something we're going to be watching very, very closely. Okay. A few other things I want to mention that we are going to be talking about tomorrow. I've addressed the Sally Yates hearing. I've talked about, we learned today that President Obama personally, during that 90-minute meeting that he had just a couple of days after the November 8th election with then President-elect Donald Trump, we've now learned that President Obama specifically warned then President-elect Trump against hiring Michael Flynn. Now, Sean Spicer popped up today, as he often does, and he wrote off the entire thing as, Obama was never a fan of Michael Flynn, so it's no surprise that he would tell Trump not to hire him, which is a total distortion. And it's if you were expecting to get anything substantive from Sean Spicer, then I don't know who you've been paying attention to in that White House press room for the last 3+ months of Trump's presidency. But not a surprise that Spicer tried to deflect. This goes well beyond personal problems. And the defenses that Spicer has been using to try to blame Obama for the entire Flynn fiasco have been so laughable. At one point, Spicer tried to blame the entire Trump-Flynn fiasco on President Obama's administration having renewed Michael Flynn's security clearance. this requires a little bit of explanation, but it is so bogus. Michael Flynn obviously had a security clearance, and not as part of the Obama administration's choosing, but merely as a sort of clerical transactional thing. He did have, by the intelligence community, his security clearance renewed. That is totally separate as a process from the vetting that starts from zero to be declared to be appointed national security advisor for a president. And it's unrelated. The fact that Flynn had his credential renewed while President Obama was still president, and that's the key wording. It's not by Obama's administration. It's while President Obama was still president. Has nothing to do whatsoever with the fact that the Trump administration completely blew it when it came to vetting Flynn, or they vetted him properly and said, hey, nobody will find out. Let's not say anything about this. So just everything that Sean Spicer has said about this has been totally laughable. Chimpanz has sent a $2 super chat asking about my thoughts on blasphemy charges against Stephen Fry. I can't really comment on that yet. I have an article bookmarked about, or a couple articles bookmarked about that to read, but I have not looked at that in detail yet, so I would not be able to comment. Okay, another super chat from Ryan Couture, $5 super chat. Would the David Pakman Show be interested in an Android app? Okay, here's the thing about apps. I would like for us to have an app, all right? That being said, there's a couple things that are important to me. Number one, I want to have as close to the same functionality on the iPhone and Android app. That's number one. And number two, every pitch, I get pitched by people who want to do an app for us basically every week. And there's always some issue. Like basically what they're doing is they would build a cookie cutter app. They'll just stick our logo onto the app and it wouldn't have any of the functionality that we actually want. Or they want some inordinate amount of money to develop an app for us, or they don't want any money, but they want to fill the app with bogus, irrelevant ads to our audience and take some kind of revenue share. Or they can do the iPhone app, but not the Android app, or they can do the Android app, but it has to be a paid app, but maybe I want the app to be free, but to make it easy to sign up for membership from within the app. So listen, I would love to have, we used to have a website in davidpakman.com that was completely not mobile friendly. Our new website is slightly more mobile friendly, but still having an actual app would be a great thing. But my goal would be to develop the iPhone and Android app together. Yeah, those are my thoughts. So and that's sort of where we are on that. Let me say thank you to Sean Schneider, who has just signed up at davidpakman.com/membership. People seem to have a pretty good grasp of what membership is. I will quickly mention that we are running a Patreon fundraiser, okay? Patreon.com/davidpakmanshow. This is so much simpler than membership, okay? So much simpler than membership. This is just, if you want to pledge $1 or $2 or more to the show to cover the lost YouTube ad revenue, you can do it at patreon.com/davidpakmanshow. We have surpassed 1,500 patrons. We are targeting 2,000 patrons. When we get to 2,000 patrons, I have agreed, maybe against my better judgment, to do an entire broadcast show from the studio with my hair uncontrolled by the product that I normally use. I posted a picture of what that looks like to my Instagram account a few weeks ago at david.pakman, and it was suggested by a few viewers that I should do set some kind of target for Patreon, and when we get there, do an entire show with my hair like that. And I've agreed to do it. It might be a terrible idea, but I have agreed to do it. And whether or not that's something that sounds appealing, you can make a contribution to get us one contributor closer to that number of 2,000 patrons at patreon.com/davidpakmanshow. And of course, new patrons and members during the stream will get live thank yous as Sean Schneider has, Terry Lemon and Kevin Clements and Lori Holcomb and so many other people that have been signing up and making contributions while we have been here. Let me say a little bit about the results of the French election. We did cover this today on the show, and I don't want to get insanely deep into it, but there are a number of important points to be made about the French election. Number one, Marine Le Pen getting crushed by a nearly 2-to-1 margin by Emmanuel Macron is a rejection of what I'm calling Trumpist alt-rightism. And I know that that's not exactly a word, but I think we all sort of have a sense of the right-wing nationalist ideas that are being rejected when voters say we are not going to vote to elect Marine Le Pen. So the good news is that a bullet was dodged. The less good news is that in Emmanuel Macron, you do have, while admittedly not a Brexit line nationalist, you've got a neoliberal who has some more progressive leaning policies and some pretty centrist neoliberal policies. And, it's better than the alternative, but it's no great progressive victory. That's number one. But the really scary part is that 34.9 or, roughly 35% support, which is what Marine Le Pen received in the popular vote, it is still a record in France for this type of nationalist candidate. And that's really what should scare us. I mean, we've seen what's been happening. We've seen what the rhetoric has been in France from the right-wing nationalists against immigrants. We've seen the rise of anti-Semitism in much of Europe, but certainly in France. And 35%, this is more than 1 out of 3 voters, not 75% turnout. So not 1 out of 3 citizens, but 1 out of 3 voters there. Who said, I am going to vote for Marine Le Pen, and that's very, very concerning. So this is a sort of short-term, what's the sort of right approach? Given where France could be today, obviously it could be a way worse situation if Marine Le Pen had won. Longer term, there are real issues that we have to concern ourselves with, not just in France, but in many of the countries of Europe that are part of this broader right-wing nationalist movement that we have been seeing in Europe, and that's a really, really disturbing thing. Also on tomorrow's program, I don't know if you guys watch Joy Reid on MSNBC. I don't really watch anything, but I'm aware of Joy Reid, and I've seen a few minutes of one of her broadcasts in the past. And she offered all 217 Republicans from the House who voted in favor of the second iteration of the American Health Care Act the opportunity, it was an open invite, come on the show and explain why you voted in favor of the American Health Care Act. Not a single one of those Republican Congresspeople who voted for the repeal of Obamacare via the replacement of it by the American Health Care Act, not a single one took her up on that. And they don't even know what's in it. There was not even enough time for them to read it. Although maybe there was time, but they opted not to, just a few days. Certainly not enough time for a full release and sort of public review of that. And we're going to be covering that on the program tomorrow. I already mentioned we will be going into detail on the Sally Yates hearing. We'll be going into detail about President Obama personally warning Donald Trump against hiring Michael Flynn. I do want to talk about Saudi Arabia tomorrow, and I've been following Saudi Arabia for many, many years. We've been following it on the program. I've told you before that it is an absolute atrocity that Saudi Arabia is on the United Nations Human Rights Committee. I mean, what sense does that make when you look at Saudi Arabia and you see public beheadings as the execution of executions of the death penalty in that country? You see, it's endless. Women's rights. It is an absolute disaster in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has maybe taken like half a baby step towards considering women normal humans like they consider men. And there's a few small potential changes that, of course, come from this monarchy that they have, from the prince. And we're going to dig into those tomorrow. Also tomorrow on the program, and this is a story I've been following for some time, sort of generally, crazy sentences for marijuana convictions. And there is a judge who has blasted an 18-year prison sentence that was rendered related to marijuana. So we're going to talk about that on the program tomorrow. And I have also learned, it has come to my attention, that at the FDA, televisions are now tuned to Fox News by default. And we've talked about all sorts of different issues that are going on at the EPA and at State Department and in so many departments. At the FDA, TVs now cannot be switched off of Fox News. And you could believe that is something that we are going to be talking about tomorrow. And I'd like to talk at some point about whether, not whether, because I think we all sort of perceive that the answer is no, but I want to talk about if single payer healthcare or universal healthcare were to be viable in the United States, how would it happen? And I think a lot of us at this point understand that that's not going to be happening anytime soon when you've got a Republican White House, a Republican House of Representatives, and a Republican Senate, and a newly appointed right-wing Supreme Court justice. We're not exactly going in the direction of single-payer health care, and that is a really, really sad thing. But it's something that I would want to talk about on the program. Let me say a few more thank yous. We have live thank yous happening for people that sign up for membership at davidpakman.com/membership or become patrons at patreon.com/davidpakmanshow. A number of new Patreon pledges. Okay. Lucas Castillo has made a pledge at patreon.com/davidpakmanshow. Lucas, to quote Sean Hannity, you're a great American, but I'm kidding. I have no idea if you're American. There's no requirement whatsoever that anybody be American in order to contribute to the David Pakman Show. We have another pledge from Jason Verville, who has made a pledge at patreon.com/David Pakman Show, as well as David Leslie. David Leslie has made a pledge at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. Also, new members at davidpakman.com/membership. And of course, if you like, you can use the coupon code IVoted17 to get a 40% discount off of membership. Tom Mitchell has signed up at davidpakman.com/membership. Ivan James has signed up at davidpakman.com/membership. Anthony Nori. Anthony, thank you for signing up at davidpakman.com/membership. Voting with their dollars. It's really pennies. It's pennies a day. But bigly supportive for the program. Richard LaFleur has signed up at davidpakman.com/membership. And of course, the long list of member benefits available for your viewing pleasure at davidpakman.com/membership. The two most popular membership benefits, I would say, are the bonus show. Every day we do the hour broadcast show, but then we do an extra show. Every day that we do a show, we do an extra show just for our paid members. It's called the bonus show. That's a popular membership benefit. And also, instead of waiting each day for these 4 to 7 minute YouTube clips to publish from our show, by 4:30 p.m. Eastern time, the entire 1 hour show is available with no commercials for our paid members. And if you prefer audio versus video, we have a separate password protected members only commercial free podcast, which combines the commercial free version of the audio show as well as the audio version of the bonus show, all for you. Okay, so those are all members only benefits. And along those lines, a lot of people signing up, and truly, I can't tell you how much I appreciate the people that have started contributing to what we're doing over the last month of the YouTube advertiser boycott. We also have Corey Bethany, who has signed up at davidpakman.com/membership. James Pyers, and Jessica. This is a tough last name to say. Jessica. Well, it actually might be Ben-Ami, sort of like Jeremy Ben-Ami, the guy who runs J Street. I believe it's Jessica Ben-Ami. Thank you to everybody, and that is really, really appreciated. Our goal is to continue completely unimpacted by the YouTube advertiser boycott, and the way we're going to do it is by continuing to replace that lost revenue. Okay, that is basically all I had planned for today. We've got a great show tomorrow. I appreciate everybody who joined me. Follow me on Instagram, david.pakman. I apologize for the trouble starting the stream at the beginning. I will troubleshoot on my end, but I believe that it was a YouTube issue. And hopefully next time I will have my full tech setup, including the Blue Yeti microphone, as well as the high definition camera. But I don't know what caused the problem. I apologize. Glad we were able to do the stream this way.